All right. Hi. Good afternoon, and we are live. We
Good
are.
afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone, and we are live. And as you know, I'm Prabu. I do real issues in Singapore, and I'm today joined by my colleague or party colleague, Dr. Michael Fang, once again. And the reason why we are doing this show, this is a unplanned, uncut, unedited, live, real, robust show with you guys is mainly that of the recent happenings in Singapore. We have had like an interesting week that followed. Leong Hian's successful crowdfunding, Roy Ngeng's crowdfunding right now, and Roy Ngeng is in fact has been in Taiwan, Taipei for a good portion of about 4 to 5 years ago. He left Singapore, but while he has still been paying damages to our Prime Minister, Mr. Lee Hsien Loong, he has been paying, I think, about $100 a month, and as of present, he has to pay $1,000 a month, and he's in the midst of fundraising. And of course, the big story. For 2 years, we have been told that Heng Swee Keat, presently our Deputy Prime Minister, would, as well as Finance Minister, who he is stepping down as Finance Minister, but he is still continuing as Deputy Prime Minister. That gets pretty confusing, one guy doing multiple role, and we do not know which role he's stepping down from, he's stepping up to. Now he's telling us we were told for 2 years that this guy would be our prime minister, our next prime minister, our heir apparent, and let's put it this way: for 2 years we have been told this, and just for him to say that he is not he will not take up the job, which is pretty disappointing. It's been like it feels that as if we have been taken for a ride for 2 years. And all right, let's hear some from Dr. Michael. What do you think about the Prime Minister's suit of our fellow colleague, Uncle Leong Hian, Mr. Leong Hian, but for us, Uncle Leong Hian, we is it fondly, and him successfully raising the full amount, which never before in Singapore's history. What are your thoughts and opinions on Uncle Leong?
First of all, I'd like to say hello, everyone. Yeah, and it's been a great afternoon to meet all of you guys. Yes, so basically, yes, without much further ado, I will touch on the topic of Uncle Leong, or Leong Hian, as you commonly know him. So first of all, the suit started off. Some of the background, right, is that he was sued for simply sharing a Facebook post, right, for which he posted no comment whatsoever. So, as the common man would see it, it is probably they would feel a sense of injustice, right? Yeah, yeah. So they will probably face and see a sense of injustice, especially at the judgment that was sent by Adif Abdullah, stating that okay, he was ordered to pay damages of 100,000 plus 33,000 in aggravated damages. So this borders on internet freedom and internet responsibility, right? As responsible speech as well as responsible freedom. So as far as responsible speech is concerned, I don't think he did anything too greatly wrong because he didn't post anything at all. That's the truth, yeah. And he was sued for simply sharing a Facebook post. So on both counts, he was essentially charged a total of $133,000, and we, the people's voice, have decided to back him up and essentially uh, pursue a quest for justice, right? A quest for justice, and we have me and Prabu, essentially, we have done our best, trawling and scrolling the Facebook pages, as well as some of our party members to raise some support for Leong, right? Justifiably, right? And basically, we have managed to pull off a miracle, yeah? We have managed to hit 133,000 in exact causes for the fines, the first time in opposition history that a figure has been
I'd like to make a
publicly
correction.
funded.
It's not a fine because it's not
Oh,
a state it's not like a state or criminal offense. It is in damages.
yes,
Yeah,
yes.
a hundred and
I
thirty-three
make that
thousand in
correction.
damages.
Yes, it's 133,000 in damages. Yes. So indeed, it is. It is. So we have this amount, this compensation amount, right? Essentially, it's not a fine. It is a damages to a certain person. Yes. So basically, we have decided to raise in all fairness of the cause, yes, and we have done it. We have done it. Okay, so congratulations to all of you who donated. It is a well done effort, and I hope that you keep it up the spirit of justice. That many more people will not be sued or fined just for posting on Facebook like all of you do, right? In fact, in many ways, this is an issue for all of us. It's not just for Leong, and commonly we stand united on the cause. Yes. So back to Prabu. Yes, would you like to comment anything more?
So mainly while Dr. Michael was speaking, you could see I was actually busy looking. I was actually sharing this link on like Telegram, on WhatsApp, on Facebook as well, so that actually more people would tune in and watch us live. And if you are live, please do us a favor, share this link. I would comment down below on the feed right now. Share this link with your friends, your family, on Telegram, on WhatsApp, and make sure you write in back to us. So we would be addressing a live comments here, and I could see a Goodwin Ang posting some stuff, and Elwin. Sorry if I connect. If I pronounce it wrong. Elvin Chen Ly here as well. I could see that you're watching live, and yeah. So I would post the in the comment section. I would post the live video link so that you guys could share it on WhatsApp, on Telegram, on multiple other channels and post a. So okay, what are my thoughts on this? Is if this judgment is allowed to stand, this would be a very dangerous precedence, because law is always based on a precedence of cases that has already happened and how judgments were awarded. So imagine, without any comments, without a positive yes I support this, or negative no I don't support this, just copy the link and paste Facebook, you could be open or held liable for defamation just based on these charges. This is a very dangerous judgment, and it would affect freedom of speech. And I mean, come on, who are we kidding? Look at our present freedom of just what do you call it? Not freedom of justice. My apologies. Our press freedom index, we are out of 180 countries, we are 158, which is very shameful. We are a and our democracy index, we are a marginal democracy or a flawed democracy. We are very close to being a what do you call a hybrid regime, which is very dangerous. Our press freedom index, we are at 158 out of 180th, and no prizes for guessing who is the 80th ranking country. North Korea. So technically, on this list, right, us being 158, we are actually closer to North Korea than maybe Iceland or Finland, who are at the number one, and this is worrying.
Yes, and I may add, with the advent of technology, all right, things that actually that we do not see actually has an impact on us. Like for example, the Trace Together token, right, as well as the school apps, which are basically tracking the what the children see on the internet, right, as well as installing on the parents' laptops as well, and as well as the HDB apps. So all these are actually tracking apps, and tracking apps give an increased sense of surveillance, and the increased surveillance will also mean increased tighter state control, which veers towards what you call the North Korea type of dictatorship. North Korea enforces it by physical labor, but with the advent of technology, we do not really need a physical security guard to see or enforce its powers over us. So just by increased surveillance alone and with modern day tracking, all these become relevant issues.
And I mean, as much as we found that due to the support of the public, the outpouring of support for Leong Hian's case and Roy Ngerng, okay, Roy Ngerng's case is a bit different. Is he wrote a lot of good articles on the CTF and the lack of transparency, but what got him into trouble was using the City Harvest case as a comparison, and that part, just single part of that, got him into trouble. So I believe that the judgment awarded and the damages of in Leong's case it was 133,000. In Roy Ngerng's case it was
150.
150,000. But I do not object that in Roy Ngerng's case, because he was the originator of the article, but in Leong Zihian's case is getting a bit ridiculous. And there has been a support for Roy, and I feel that justice aside, this is was never a criminal case or a a case of the state of Singapore against Roy Ngerng. However, the damages awarded to the Prime Minister 150,000, and Roy Ngerng was just a social worker at a Tan Tock Seng hospital. If I'm not mistaken, his pay was around 3K or even lesser. It is crazy. If you see the vast and I mean the prime minister does not need that type of money to begin with in terms of damages. Then he earns about 2.2 million, and I think Roy Ngerng hardly earned 220,000 or even lesser. I think at most he would have earned about 30 or 40,000 per annum, which is ridiculous. The income disparity is there, so we can't go ahead and start using financial means as a form of perceived oppression of speech. And people would be afraid of the just making any comment or even posting Facebook, because they could be open for suits. But well, this is the funny part. People are posting Facebook on the progressive stage of how much the crowdfunding have progressed. So what essentially has happened is, as much as they are trying to stop people from the perception of the optics, perception of perspectives, of stopping people from posting Facebook. In fact, people have been posting more on Instagram, on Telegram, on Facebook, and an array of social media. That is what that has been happening instead. So it's like this: you try to do something, but the backlash or results, it is actually far worse than if you did not do anything at all. That is how it seems. And yeah, on Roy Ngeng's CPF issue, well, that was 5 years ago. 5 years into the present, from at that point of time was, I think, GE 2015, or he was writing at about 2014. So about 5 6 years have passed, and right now even the CPF, there has the transparency is still questionable. Back then they denied that the CPF was being reinvested to GIC or Temasek. But after Roy Ngerng wrote, Darman has actually came out publicly and told, yes, that is the case. So we need more transparency and a better returns on the CPF. And to be honest, we should not be paying the fund managers as high as we are paying for the results that they are producing. I mean, we should compare ourselves with first world countries and Nordic countries, where the fund managers generate a higher rate of return, but they are not shamelessly paying themselves that high. Whereas in Singapore, the fund managers, our rate of return, what are they actually generating is questionable. And they are paying themselves, they are claiming like a high diesel, the saying of, if you do not pay us enough or you do not pay us high enough, there would be corruption. And this sort of lame duck excuses, people in the public service stating that, if you do not pay the public servants high enough, that they would go on to the private sector. I mean, we need to draw a line of, if you want to be well paid, you want to make money, you should be in business, in commerce, in trade, and enterprise, in private practice or whatsoever, finding your own income, and no one is stopping you from becoming the next billionaire. But if you are in public service, you can't expect to, because remember, in public service, it's a service to the public, to the masses. And I mean, money is never free, it's going to come from somewhere. And you cannot be a overbearing cost or expense to taxpayers. Remember, taxpayers are hardworking people who are contributing to you, to your salary. So yeah, I'll move on to Michael's opinion on Leong's case and Leong and Roy Ngeng's fundraising right now before we move on to the big story of Heng Swee Keat. So Michael, take it
All
away.
right. So basically, from what I see, Roy's case was about 5 years ago. He was ordered to pay 100 a month for about 5 years, and then subsequently he's ordered to pay about
1,000 a month.
1,000 a month for 10 years, if I'm not wrong. That would mean actually a debt plan has been laid out and essentially staggered. So while I applaud his courage and initiative in moving with this, I also think that Leong's case should take a bit of priority as well, yeah, because Leong's case, although 133,000 have been raised, but there is yet the issue of the vendor's bill, there's yet the issue of other court causes which may arise, and also I believe in the quest for justice, it may be in the public interest again to pursue a redress or appeal of the judgment which I believe was rendered unfairly. Because this fight is not just for Leong, it's actually for every one of us, for who wants a step and a foot forward in internet freedom, in the ability to post our posters, in the ability and the freedom to post responsibly, yeah, as well, without any comment, yes. Which I feel it's a fair thing for all of us. Yeah. So this is what I think should be uh, brought forward on Leong's case, and I believe he should pursue the cause of redressing the injustice if he believes it's so. Yes. So back to you, Prabhu.
Yeah, so as I was telling, I want to make a I want to make a case of why Leong should appeal, because if this judgment is allowed to stand, the dangerous precedent would be this would be a textbook reference for future cases of you just post and they're like in the case of Leong Hian versus Lee Hsien Loong, this was awarded. So in this case, just posting, okay, you are open for defamation. And I mean, this is not the case of just a political ministers or people of high stature. Imagine people who had money to spend on lawyers could end up just abusing the system against people who do not have money to engage lawyers to defend themselves. Let's say someone who is a billionaire or multi-millionaire, just because they are in business or trade, and they're they've got, definitely everyone has critics. No one has about 100% of the population following, unless you're North Korea and Kim Jong Un lah. So or maybe even Xi Jinping in China, you might go missing and all that, like dictatorial states. But in Singapore, I don't think anyone has gone missing so far. So
Not that we know of.
jokes aside, like, yeah. So imagine the legal system could be used by people with influence, with money and power to spend about, let's say, 10, 20,000, let's say, to a multi-millionaire or a billionaire. I mean, I could reference back to an old case of the NKF, TT Dorai.
Yeah.
Much later, he was found guilty, but he actually, in the earlier stages, won cases of defamation against whistleblowers. And if I'm not mistaken, now we talk about City Harvest and Roy Ngerng. Then I just remembered City Harvest, quite some time back, there had church members were whistleblowers, and there was a type of a legal letter of demands, or letter of demand is actually a pre-suit where you are given a chance to cease and desist. These sort of avenues would be given by people who are wealthy, who have ability to afford them the services of lawyers, to stop them from telling what they are telling, whether or not it's the truth. In many cases, it could be the truth, but they are just they can't afford being whistleblowers. So this would set a very dangerous precedence of people who are telling the truth, people who are coming out and challenging people in power, people with money, people have authority of wrongdoing. And like, I mean, still hanging on the balance is the case of Patti Liani. I mean, she was judged guilty, but just to have her sentence overthrown. But people who are wealthy, people who are rich, there has been no case taken up against her employer, Liu Man Leong. But of course, Carl Liu has been taken to task for giving some his son Carl Liu, but Liu Man Leong, his wife, is rather questionable. Why has there been no action taken against them? So this is why I want to make a case of why we should be supporting Leong Hian, and we should be encouraging him to make an appeal. And I mean, even if you lose in the court of appeal, and there are additional costs, and these are I would say that these are cases that you cannot save money, because if you save money for yourself in the current generation now, future generations, your children or your children's children, when their time comes, when they post on social media, they could be subjected to this reference point in history, and say and be charged by in for defamation by a private individual who is able to afford lawyers, who is able to pay the court fee of 10,000 is nothing to them, 20,000 is nothing to them, yeah, versus the ordinary person, let's say Roy Ngerng, what he was earning about 30 to 40,000 dollars annum, and yeah, and I mean the income disparity is there. I mean in Singapore statistically, about a good 35 to 40% of people earn lesser than $3,000, which is quite saddening in our high cost of living environment. So this is why I want to make a heartfelt appeal to the logic is one thing, the emotions is another, but I'm combining them actually to actually why I'm making a case of why this standing should not be there. And even if you lose at the appeal, you know that you actually tried something, you know that you actually challenged the thing even to the highest court, and to try to make a difference. And that's where there is the social justice come in. And I'm not talking about the social justice is equated very negatively with those social justice warriors we see in the West. But however, what sort of social justice with, I'm not talking about socialism, but social justice with capitalism, crowdfunding in the case of Leong's, in the case of Roy Ngerng, that we are seeing that we do not, or the public do not agree with the outcome of the learned judge, but people through donations, through sparing a few dollars, are making them are making it known that they are unhappy with the judgment. And I put it this way: capitalism is where we are voting with our money on a daily basis of what we choose to eat, what we choose to spend on, and what we consume. Like that's where, like, product, services, and food. I always go to the hawker centers and coffee shops to vote with my dollars to support the auntie and uncles who are hardworking people. So I want to make that case for social justice with capitalism, and it is not outright socialism. And also, I
Now,
take it from Michael.
basically, this is the people's fight, right? The people's fight to express themselves individually, and it's not just about any political party, right? But as you have seen, some of the other political parties are keeping quiet on this issue, and I feel that it is not just a political fight; it's everybody's fight, right? The people's voice is just a representation of disparate people's voices, and essentially join in a coalition cry for change and democracy. Yeah, so I do hope that every one of you understand that this is not the individual fight; it's everyone's fight. We are trying to bring uh, more democracy and more fairness to the table. Yes, so that each of us actually have a voice in shaping our futures. Right. So this is what I believe this is for. Right. This is everyone's fight. Everyone has a pie in it. Everyone has a share in it, and we're going to work towards a better future.
So with that to say, I want to give a special shout out to Dr. Ang Yong Guan, who has been actively posting on social media. Special thanks to Dr. Ang, and I do not see this as a while Dr. Ang is a PSP member, a PSP CEC member. This is not about the party, but this is, or parties. This is about the country. This issue is about crossing party lines. And hey, even if you are a PAP member but you do not agree with your leader, the prime minister, suing an ordinary citizen, you can feel free to make it known via crowdfunding or contribution, or even you could vote against your party. We are seeing in mature democracies where in the US in 2016, lifelong Democratic Party voters actually voted for Trump, a Republican. We saw that in the UK elections where lifelong Labour Party members, maybe about 50 years of Labour Party voters, 50 years or 100 years in constituencies that has never voted for anyone apart from Labour, is known as the Red Wall, vote for Boris Johnson's Conservatives. We must keep up with the days and the time. And as I said, this is not about party lines. As I gave a special thanks to Dr. Ang, I hope people or members or volunteers and supporters of the Workers' Party, the Progress Singapore Party, the SDP, and any and all other party apart from us being in PV, and people who have got no party. Hey, majority of Singaporeans don't belong to any party. The only party we all belong to is the Singapore Citizens Party. There's no such party. As long as you hold a red passport, all of our passport
Pink
collecting
passport,
pink IC lah.
Pink IC.
All of our passport is collecting dust because now cannot travel lah. Yeah. So as long as you have a red passport and a pink IC, you belong to this group of us. We are all Singapore citizens. That's my point. And this is the citizens fight against the establishment, the government, against the authority. That I always like to take up a case of people, individuals should have our own, should have more power and authority over the people in power. So it's like the power of the people should be more and greater than people in power. And this should not be the case of just once in 5 years during election time. This should have been a case of a consistent thing. So that's why I belong. I belong to a group that believes in referendums, giving people a direct democracy or a chance to vote on issues. And I'm from corporate finance, so I like to equate it. In a company, the strongest people are the shareholders. Actually, when it comes down to the vote, the biggest people. But shareholders can be diluted, like everyone have a 1% or even 0.5%. But when it crosses a 51%, the directors, the board of directors, or the C level, the CEOs are supposed to follow the will of the shareholders. That's why I'd like to make Singapore democratic again, and let us challenge the Nordic countries in terms of democracy, like the UK, the US, or Iceland, Finland, Sweden, Switzerland. I'd like to give people a chance of a referendum once in a year, or on many issues, like even right now, the Tudong issue as well. You put it out on a question on a referendum. Who could be your next prime minister as well? I mean, right now we have a parliamentary democracy. We know that the PAP has a majority, so the PAP is supposed to, instead of having internal elections, they should be putting out like 4 or 5 of their candidate and let the people directly vote who they want as the party leader. That's democracy.
I think referendum is a great idea, and at the same time, let me clarify. We are not suggesting that anyone break the law. We are suggesting that we will follow the law, and as of course, we will hope that the laws are fair, and that's what we are fighting for. Yeah, that's what we're saying. Yeah, and at the same time, yes, a referendum is a very good idea. But as the geopolitics, political situation goes in Singapore, as long as the majority keeps voting one party in, then the PMship will be decided by one person. Yes, is it not the case?
Well, as in a parliamentary democracy or parliamentary constitution, the people have voted in for one party that cross out of 93 seats, 47 for a majority. In fact, they have more than 47. They have about 83, which even crosses 2/3. So it is based on the internal elections of who the next party leader is going to be, and ultimately the party leader is the next prime minister. So the question falls on to the few but not the many. It's decided by the few, but the many have decided that this party is to govern Singapore. This party has the power, to the authority. So this is where to have further no concentration of power, of authority, of bureaucracy, of concentration. We should be having a multi-party democracy. This is a case that we should be having representation or diversification in parliament. Let's say if the A team is down, imagine the A is so lopsided. Out of 93, 83 belong to one team, 10 belongs to another team. Imagine with the collapse of the first team or infighting with the first team, the second team can't form they can't even form a shadow government, let alone an actual government to take over. This is where I'd like to make a case for people to go forward, to learn and read more and be educated on democratic systems around the world. I mean, in Singapore, most of the time you speak to the average person, they are like telling you that, it is come down to PAP versus opposition or the government versus opposition. That is not the case. And yeah,
So basically, the government position is such that it is an open position, and essentially the parties basically compete for the position in every GRC, right? And once the number of MPs are so-called concluded, the majority of MPs will give their vote to choose who they want to be the minister, or rather, the person appointed of this body would basically be the one to decide. Yes, which is now the case, which is why who you want to be the PM is actually decided by currently one incumbent party. But if you do want a coalition government, then in which you can decide actually who gets to be a PM, then you have to vote accordingly, don't you? So your vote is actually more important than just a simple giveaway for a few $100s, right? Which of course you can say, some people like to say, "Akong kay lui," right? That's the usual phrase, which for a couple of $100, which works out to less than maybe, let's say for $300 is for a year, it's actually less than 80 cents for a cup of coffee. Yeah, which would you like better? The ability to choose your own people you want and the policies you want, or just for 80 cents a day a cup of coffee?
I take issue with the Akong Kelui. I mean, I would expect it from the older folks of the aunties, uncles. They like to use the common language of like the government give Akong Kelui. But what I'm surprised is the younger generations in their 20 or 30s are using the term translated to English, the government give free money. But do you know, 40 years ago, Mrs. Thatcher, one of the greatest prime ministers of the UK, has said one thing, and people should actually go and read up and just generally do a lot of socio-economical and political reading. There is actually, if you use logic, there's no such thing as free money. There's no such thing as government money or public money. So whenever the government gives you something, there's only one source, which is taxes, and you have to pay tax through GST, through income taxes, through inheritance taxes, through property taxes, and so on and so forth. And I mean, while people have been going around telling the issue of in Singapore we are paying the lowest taxes. Hey, the truth is we are paying the lowest income taxes, but do you know in the world we pay one of the highest road taxes. We have got COE, we have got road tax, we have got ERP, and road taxes. Okay, then I'll like try to equate it in a language that we all would understand. Like Michael is a trained and qualified doctor, so he would understand this better. In a human body, you need like the red blood cells to carry oxygen. So similarly, our transport networks is like the veins and the blood arteries, and the transport, be it like car, motorcycle, or lorries and all, it's like carrying oxygen throughout the economy, throughout the country to move things. If our transport network or the road taxes are expensive, the cost of sustaining the oxygen for the country and the economy is expensive. So the cost of basic functions should not be high. It should be kept as low as possible so that that the cost of function would not be expensive. Things like transport. I mean, when it comes to transport, why is there a high demand for for private vehicles of cars for motorcycles? It is because the public infrastructure, it is not there. I mean, in Singapore, we are a city state. We have got 5 mayors, but we have got a transport system that it is a public transport system of the buses and MRTs is not 24 hours. If you see in New York, London, where they have got, or Moscow, they have got one mayor, and their public transport systems are 24 hours. I mean, in the peak period, they have got like 90 seconds trains in Japan. But however, in off-peak period, like let's say, even though half an hour one train or a bus, half an hour or 1 hour for a public train or a bus in places like Tokyo, in places like Moscow, in places like New York and London, it is still a 24-hour economy. In Singapore, even before COVID, while other places were, certain industries were 24 hours, we had Mustafa, we had Don Donkey. How would the workers get back home during like non-sunrise hours and get to work during non-sunrise hours if they had to rely on expensive like Grab or taxis, because their public buses and public trains are not functioning at this hour, and it's ridiculous. While we do not have 24-hour buses and trains, public buses and trains, we have 5 mayors. What are these people doing actually?
Okay, just touching on the transport system. Okay, basically, we have received a lot of breakdowns over the last year, and so we know that it is not functioning as optimal as we would hope. I mean, we as referring to the people, right? Not functioning as optimally as we hoped, and sometimes getting to work is a problem. In addition, transport costs has actually been raised, right, in terms of petrol hikes and petrol taxes, which, although it's an indirect form of carbon taxation, but I believe that the government should explore new alternatives of green energy, right, in accordance with climate plans, so that we can actually put them into practice, yeah, and basically that the common citizen can enjoy. So with that in place, then we can talk about carbon taxes and the excessive use of petroleum as an energy source. Then it would make sense. If you were to implement the carbon tax, for example, before any green alternatives were implemented, that would only mean that the common man would be forced to buy and purchase petrol at that fixed price with no viable alternatives, which is why I spoke out against the carbon tax, because I feel that this would cause unjustified suffering for the common people. So that is not that should be a no-go at this stage, right? And I think that should be PV stance as well. First of all, first and foremost, the suffering of the common man is the suffering of us. So we should not abide nor allow that. While times are very bad for the economic situation in Singapore and for the common man.
I mean, I would like to touch on basic economics lah, of supply and demand. Every time the oil prices go up, they find a justification to tell you they need to raise the buses and train fare. But whenever, there was a saga, there was about a good 3 to 4 years when the oil prices came down. That time they never tell you that we need to revise the fares back downwards whenever they to collect lesser fare from the people. They never tell you that. So it's a very peculiar situation. I would like to say. I mean, of course, there's a justification of costs and oil prices, energy costs. But whenever energy costs went down, they never tell you, to that you need to revise them downwards to keep them. So I find this is rather ludicrous. And why is there a high demand of, once again, private transport? Is because public transport is actually behind times. I would say that we are actually heading towards, the government keeps telling us that we need a bigger population, but if you see, the transport is always playing catch up everywhere you go. The buses and trains are packed, and of course, for this 1 year, it has been quiet because of the work from home situation and the safety distancing and COVID. But now, as we saw the government mentioning that a work from home is not the default, it is again for this past 1 to 2 weeks, I'm seeing that the public transport is starting to get packed. And this is the funny joke, whenever you queue for food, you're eating, there is social distancing of 8 to a table, or the next table is 1 meter apart. But there's no social distancing on buses or on trains that during peak hours. So are they trying to tell that the virus does not spread on buses or trains? This is why a lot of policies that is hair in brain and outrightly ridiculous. It doesn't make common sense, and its logic is just thrown out of this window. I would expect better from scholars who are actually told they are told to us they are being smarter than the average person, but these people come up with policies on paper but just doesn't make sense. No safety distancing on buses or on trains, but there's safety distancing on the street, or when you queue you need to have 1 meter apart, or when you sit down to have a meal, 8 to a table, and the next table must be one. I've even seen social distancing ambassadors take up measuring tape to measure whether they are 1 meter apart. But in the MRT, we do not see this sort of safe distancing, or on the buses during peak hours.
Yes, that is indeed so, and that poses a danger as well to the safety, right, of people on the buses as compared to people seated eight at the table. Yeah, and so it is a discrepancy in the rules and policy following, and apparently it makes sense if you are trying to optimize profits. Yeah, rather than the public safety of commuters like us. Yes.
Well, a high possibility is that they are deeming it based on the community cases. When community cases has been less of COVID-19 spread has been lesser than mostly this quite a while has been about in single figures lah. However, why are we keep having imported cases on a consistent basis? How come with measures such as the stay home notice and all, the imported cases is still there? It is still about in double digits on a daily basis for the past 1 year. What is going on, and why are we still having these imported cases? I mean, New Zealand has tackled this very well, and well, they have a prime minister that and an entire cabinet of ministers that is being paid a fraction of what our Singapore government is being paid. Our ministers, our prime ministers, our ministers of states, and our senior parliamentary secretaries, all these political appointment holders, shouldn't we expect higher standards in Singapore compared to the New Zealand, given that they are being paid about 4 to 5 times more? But how come New Zealand is being paid about a fraction of what our Singapore political holders, political office holders, or politicians are being paid? Why can they deliver, and why can't our 4G government deliver on results?
Actually, what is being paid is actually I don't think the people uh, have a very narrow view on what they're being paid. Actually, what they're being paid is less of a factor rather than what they can produce. Yeah. So if of course if they can produce great results for the people, what they're being paid should not be such an issue. Yeah. So the issue is that, like for example, the cases where they're importing large number of let's say cases from overseas right into Singapore, right? And if you notice and break down the figures, there's a large proportion of immigrants, yes, who come here for jobs and who hopefully may apply for PR or citizenship. Maybe that is the game plan after all, right? And if the numbers become large enough, they're hoping to exclude the Singaporean votes. Is that the case? I'm not sure, but that is a possible opinion, yeah. So most of this video is actually based on certain happenings that are going on the ground, and as well as expressing our opinions. Yes. So
Well, I would like to say that despite paying ministers and political office holders, there has been, like, a no blame culture, which I do not know, is that has that evolved into a no accountability culture, a no balance culture, a no literally a no accountability, no balance culture? Or has the no blame culture always been a forefront? We do not blame people for this, we do not blame people for that when it comes to the top office holders. But however, when it comes to the ordinary person working an ordinary job, be it the private or the public sector, you're very quick to get fired, the ordinary person, and there is a blame culture if you are in the lower tiers of society. But when you're in the higher tiers of society, it's like, hey, let's not blame anyone, let's not point fingers. And it's like, and I find it also pretty funny that the newspapers are trying to there has been selective reporting. Like you see, when the fundraising is up for Leong, Hian, the fundraising is going on for Ngerng, there has been silence. Hey, I also want to know what happened to this. There's no news on this Ivan guy. What sort of investigation or anything that has been conducted against this Ivan guy with regards to the saga, which almost happened a year ago? This guy was supposed to be a PAP candidate. No news, no nothing. And I want it is not it is not so much of a surprise that our mainstream medias and newspapers and Singapore Press Holdings newspaper sales is dwindling, and their advertisement revenue is dwindling as well, and their share price is literally suffering. So what I would like to do is to actually advocate a more free media. It's not just government held newspapers or internet podcasts and stuff, but actually private newspapers to come up, and that would improve our press standing. One of my work orders that I would personally like to undertake is, should I be elected not just as an MP, or should I be given a role in the certain ministries, is to free up our press, so that our press and media, we have a higher, we would not be 158 out of 180 countries. And one of my life goals is I would like to challenge the Nordic countries like Finland, like Norway, like Sweden, like Switzerland, to be among the top 10 for press freedom index, or top 10 for media freedom index. And the only way to go about it is to have an advocacy for privately held media companies to be given newspaper licenses, and in fact do away with newspaper and media licenses. We cut down on unnecessary bureaucracy, where a local company could be broadcasters in this day and age. A local company could print out newspapers and run it in a very business model, rather than unnecessary officers, unnecessary bureaucracy, unnecessary government control. Is because, remember, whenever there's a new government office set up, how are we going to pay for the salaries of the employees? It's going to come from more taxpayers, so they are a cost to taxpayers.
To the effect, in that sense, I would say that actually most of the press, mainstream media, is losing its relevancy, right? As the more and more younger people attend to alternate media and other sources of news, yeah. So it is not a surprise that SPH and various mainstream media agencies have been dropping in their circulation of copies of newspapers, yeah, and as well as press releases. So these are the factors in the modern day age, and essentially the internet cannot be controlled, yeah. And what Prabu says is right. Perhaps more free reign or leash could be given to companies, since anyway it is the action on the ground is already not on the mainstream media, yeah, as far as you can see, yeah. And yes, although there's still a sizable subscription, but I believe the subscription to mainstream media avenues are actually dropping, right? People are looking towards global news, yeah, and things like that. Yes.
And mainly, wow, I could see that we are already 48 minutes live, and we haven't even touched on the big story. We're a bit touched here and there of a lack of succession and stuff. Mr. Heng Swee Keat dropping a bomb on us and literally telling that he would not be he would not be the next prime minister. Your thoughts on that?
Okay. Actually, just to share a frank view of opinion, in essence, Mr. Heng Swee Keat dropping out is not that much of a surprise, because if you look at what happened, right? Initially, right, I think it was reported in some news articles back that the PAP follows a cadre CC system. So in fact, so basically, the choosing of a successor would rely on the the CEC would rely on a cadre, right? And the choosing of the first designate appointee was actually was between Chan Chun Sing and I believe it was Heng Swee Keat. And Heng Swee Keat won the support of most of the cadres, which is why he was appointed DPM. But later during the elections, he was thrown into East Coast, I believe. Yeah, no.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he
East
was
Coast,
thrown
right?
into
East
East
Coast.
Coast.
And so basically, as he was thrown in the East Coast, and of course the gaffe about the East Coast plan shows that he was unprepared to be thrown in the East Coast. Ah, yes. And the end of the result was that he achieved 52%. Right? Was it 50 plus percent?
About
50,
yeah, 52 to
55.
54 thereabout,
Around
but
around that. It was a low 50 percentage. And in essence, it won't be a surprise if he won't stand for the next election, because if he were to lose that seat, would he be able to hold on to the PMship? I doubt it.
well,
So therefore, it is logical that he would choose to step down at a juncture. It's only a matter of time, yeah, whether it will be 6 months from now or now, yeah. So I was actually expecting it, right, and due to either both internal machinations as well as the external optics of having achieved a low 50 plus percent in East Coast, and which is many people expect it to fall in the next election, yeah.
well, honestly, while with him being thrown in East Coast is one thing, but he could not deliver a speech or a nomination speech. He was fumbling around, and that is not the first instance. Even in Parliament previously, when there was exchanges going on, he had to like stop his turn. He was at the podium speaking. He was like stop his turn, and he was like flipping. There's a video of him like flipping. So he's actually pretty gaff prone. So in certain sense that I'm glad that he would not be our next prime minister, but you know, I'm now worried who would be our next prime minister. We could see there have been online polls, and of course, the hot favorite, which no one is considering, is Tharman, because they are saying that he's too old, or he does not belong to a race of the majority. I find that rubbish, actually, because the whole saying of Singapore not being ready for a non-Chinese PM. It is racist to a certain sense. You see, and they have been saying this quite a while, but the hot public favorite was Tharman, but he's not being considered. So among the and as well, he does not belong to the 4G. He's there about the age of our current prime minister. So the hot favorite right now, according to a poll online, is Lawrence Wong. Lawrence Wong seems to be the hot favorite with 37%, followed by Ong Yi Kang and Chan Chun Sing, and follows at about 25, and Desmond Lee at about 5. But you know what worries me is, out of the blue, just before Heng Swee Keat mentioned that he would not be the next prime minister, out of the blue, Shanmugam was actually talking about, is Singapore, exactly a month ago, he was answering questions. Is Singapore ready for a female prime minister? And that's when was like, oh gosh, who could be the next female prime minister be if we had a female prime minister? Well, Indrani is Indian, so once again, the same argument of Dharman would be that she can't be prime minister because she does not belong to a race of the majority, and they would like all that. Grace Fu is a few years younger than Heng, which is about only 57. So going by the longer runway and going by they want a female prime minister. What worries me is no prizes for guessing, a certain Josephine Teo. She's only 52, and she is a PAPCC member, and she has a reasonably long runway, and that frightens me if we had a Prime Minister Josephine Teo. Your takes?
Okay, on that view, I do beg to differ, right? I feel that this has to actually, it's not actually a dropping of the DPM, but actually a continuation of the succession plan. Okay, so the succession plan essentially, I believe, right, initially had Chan Chun Sing in the lineup, yes, and I believe that after Heng Swee Keat steps down, right, if we're looking at the vote of the last PAP's cadre CC system, then the next logical succession will be Chan Chun Sing. and it would be a step in cementing the political succession, because I believe there are further plans down the road, right? If you get the gist of what I'm saying, there are certain reasons why this is called a very tightly ruled political system. Yeah, we're very tightly. So basically, there would be one person who would follow suit, and no guesses if you take into account all the increased surveillance apps that have been looking. So that is why your vote is actually very important, and every vote actually counts. Yeah. So you're voting for the right party, yes. So it depends on whether you want your vote to count for be able to choose the policies that you think will be best for you and the country, or would you be choosing a policy that you trade off for 80 cents cup of coffee or something like that, yeah, that you could enjoy a day. So yeah, whether in essence whether you can choose the direction you want your life to be in, or you sacrifice it for a cup of coffee or less. Yeah, actually it's less if you look about a cup of coffee nowadays, like $1.30, $2, right?
Yeah,
It's getting
and
there, it's getting there, yeah.
when you put that into perception, into perspective, into optics, right? It's very sad to see that people would trade off their lives, their freedoms, and for like a cup of coffee a day. That is really sad, and we have to like my say is we need to unleash the full potential of Singapore and Singaporeans. It is partly to give priority to because I mean in Singapore the only capital that we have is human capital, but with Singaporeans being unemployed or underemployed, they are not getting jobs which they are qualified to do, and instead resorting to driving taxis, delivering food on motorcycles and bicycles. We are actually underutilizing our potential. We should be maximizing our potentials and unleash the citizens, the potential of our citizens of our country, and in wider perspective, unleash the our potential of our country. So and I mean we have like proper plans. I'm not talking about East Coast plan now, that has been blown out of the water, and no longer a together Singapore plan. Anyway, that wasn't the only gaffe on nomination day. Like if you all go and watch nomination day, there was a lot of gaffes, but that one stood out literally. And I'd say we are almost an hour. So if you want us to do this more often, just do comment, leave your comments here, like, share, and share this video widely if you want us to do this more often. And I would be posting this on YouTube, as well as the Telegram page of Real Issues in Singapore. So we would be talking about generally 1 hour not enough to talk about a lot of things. So
But this should suffice. This should suffice.
this should suffice for now, because of course we got Uncle Leong on a regular basis talking about CPF, HDB, healthcare, that the government does not spend a single cent in a net cash perspective. And of course there we have got like we would be talking about current issues. And hey, in Singapore, news sites are being regulated. So I just want to be very clear, in case they come and say that we are breaking news or we are spreading news, whether real or fake news. We are not a news website. We are a news commentary website. Like someone already broke the news, be it like CNA or Today or someone, or Straits Times or alternate media, the Independent, the New Narrative, or the Online Citizen. We are a news commentary. We are commenting on news that other people have already broken. That's why we must be very clear in Singapore. And that's why earlier when you were mentioning about the suits or damages and fines, we want to whenever we make a short mistakes or drawing the line, we must be very quick to clarify, because we could be taken to task by POFMA for spreading fake news at the smallest instances.
No, I don't think so, because we are not spreading news. We are just a commentatory, and we just hope to be able to share our opinions and comments so that people can make more sense of the general issues that abound in Singapore. Yeah.
So we would like to call our podcast an end shortly. So if you're watching on Facebook, please do like, share, comment, and subscribe. If you're, I'll repost it up to YouTube. Click the bell notification and subscribe. And like if you're on Telegram, so we rely on we do not spend on ad budget, so we rely on ordinary, decent, average, hardworking people to actually copy the link and share. And do not be afraid that just by sharing online you could be. I mean, end of the day, out of a 9,000 people who shared, Leong Hian was one lah. If they were to go, this is where the power of strength in numbers come. If they were to target every 9,000 people who shared, right? I tell you, the court, I don't need to do any other work already.
Anyway, this is like a good episode of like you ever watch a Good Morning Vietnam? Yeah, so this is
Oh,
Good
yes.
Afternoon Singapore.
Good afternoon,
Yes.
Singapore. Yeah.
Okay, well done, and everyone stay safe, yeah, and happy. Just remember your vote counts, and what you want to do with it also counts. Yes. So love you, Singapore. All right. Catch up with you again.
Right.
Thank you very
Michael,
much.
that was a great episode. Come on, fist bump and tuning out. Just like, share, comment, and we want more people to speak up, more people to share their views, not just every time like just myself or Dr. Michael or Lim Tian or Leong Hian. We want you, the average, ordinary, hardworking, decent Singapore citizen, to air your views, to talk without being afraid. All right. Bye for now,
Bye bye.
guys.